"Sir, that boy played ball with me yesterday," the child told the millionaire. The truth was shocking. "I knew this boy," a small voice said behind Ethan Moore. He turned around. The cemetery was nearly silent, save for the breeze rustling through leafless trees. A boy stood there, no older than 11, dressed in a worn-out coat, dark curls tumbling over his forehead, and brown eyes glowing with an odd certainty. He pointed at the black granite headstone where Liam Moore was carved beneath the words, "Forever the light of his parents' lives." "What did you say?" Ethan asked, his voice rough. "I used to play soccer with Liam," the boy said, unflinching beneath Ethan's cold stare. Ethan's chest tightened. 4 months. 4 months since he buried his only son. 4 months since everything ended. But the pain still pulsed like an open wound. Liam had been just 10. A quiet, sensitive child who learned early not to disturb a father who was always too busy. "Are you sure?" Ethan asked, swallowing hard. "You knew his name?" "I called him Lee," the boy said, pointing at the small photo on the headstone. Liam's gentle smile and solemn eyes captured forever in silence. "That's not possible," Ethan snapped. "My son was in the hospital almost the entire last year. He was too weak to go outside. He couldn't have played soccer." The boy didn't argue. He just gave a sad little smile. "I know he wore a blue Yankees cap. Not because he liked the team, but because it hid the parts where his hair was gone. He said it was his lucky cap." Ethan froze. That cap had vanished from Liam's hospital room in his final days. No one had found it, and only 2 people ever knew the story behind it, Ethan and Liam. A chill wind blew through, loosening a single rose petal from the bouquet Ethan had placed that morning. He said nothing. He couldn't. The boy continued. "I knew he didn't run fast, got tired quickly, but he insisted on being goalie. He missed almost every shot, but he laughed like he'd just won a championship." Ethan shut his eyes. That laugh, the one that rang like wind chimes, he hadn't heard it in months. "Who are you?" Ethan whispered. "I'm Liam's friend. My name is Jaden." "Where did you meet Liam?" Ethan asked, voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. Jaden glanced down, nudging a pebble with his shoe. "At Grove Park, in the Bronx, whenever he felt strong enough to come. We played near the back field behind the apartment buildings." "That's not possible," Ethan shook his head. "My son, he was doing chemo almost every week. On the off days, he was too weak to even stand. He couldn't have—" "I know," Jaden gently interrupted. "He usually came for just 15-20 minutes. He'd jog a little, then sit and rest, but he never wanted to leave early." Too many details. Too right. Ethan's mind raced. Jaden looked up, his eyes steady. "He always sat on the stone bench under the big maple tree, the one with the crack on the edge that jabs your side if you sit too far left. Liam said it was the coach's seat because from there he could observe the whole formation." Ethan froze. He remembered Liam once pointing out a bench just like that, on one of the rare days they passed the park before the diagnosis took over their lives. A passing comment, a forgotten moment. No one else could have known, except Liam. Jaden continued, voice softer now. "Liam said his dad built buildings that touched the sky, that one day when he got better, he'd learn how to do the same." Ethan turned away, breath catching in his chest. "He never told us he was sick," Jaden added. "I just guessed from how tired he got, and the marks on his arms when he changed shirts, but no one asked. We just played." A strong gust swept through, bringing the scent of fading flowers, damp soil, and tears Ethan could no longer hide. Jaden stepped forward, careful not to shatter the silence. "When I saw the news that Liam passed, I looked at every park. No one knew his real name. We all called him Lee. It took weeks online, but I found this cemetery." Ethan looked at the boy in front of him, his jacket threadbare, shoes too big, but eyes steadier than any executive he'd ever faced. "I came for a reason," Jaden said, barely above a whisper. "Liam told me that if anything happened, I should find his dad, tell him he's not angry, that he understands. And that those afternoons in the park were the happiest days of his life." Ethan felt something inside him break. There was no denying it anymore. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Jaden's words echoed over and over. Liam said his dad built buildings that touched the sky. Each word felt like a blade slicing through his chest. By dawn, he gave up trying to rest. He opened his laptop and searched through Liam's medical records from Columbia Hospital. The truth was there, buried in sterile data. Several appointments were listed as outpatient therapy. Ethan had never heard of them. One name appeared repeatedly: Monica Rivera. Occupation: cafeteria attendant. Department: not oncology. Ethan froze. The name kept reappearing next to the days Liam was mysteriously marked temporarily discharged. Something in him stirred, a pull he couldn't ignore. That afternoon, Ethan drove to the Bronx, to the address Jaden had mentioned. The building was old, walls cracked, balconies heavy with laundry. His expensive car and designer shirt made him feel like an intruder. The door of apartment 3B opened. A woman in her mid-30s stood there. No makeup, hair tied back, still in her pale blue uniform. Tired eyes, but not unkind. "Monica Rivera?" Ethan asked quietly. She nodded. "You're Liam's father." Not a question, a statement. "Jaden said you'd come." Ethan hesitated. "I need to speak with your son." "Jaden's doing homework. If you came here to threaten us, please leave." "I didn't come to threaten anyone," Ethan said, rubbing his forehead. "I just need to understand. I need to know who my son really was in those last months." Something softened in Monica's gaze. She stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was tiny but spotless. The smell of cooked rice and beans lingered faintly. Family photos lined the wall, Jaden smiling on a worn soccer field. Monica sat at the small table, opened a drawer, and pulled out a creased envelope. On the front, in the shaky handwriting of a child, was one word: Dad. "Liam gave this to me," she said slowly. "He told me to keep it, and only give it back if someone came looking." Ethan's hands trembled as he took it. The paper felt soft, warm somehow, as if it still held his son's breath. "Why didn't you give it to me sooner?" he whispered. Monica looked at him gently, her eyes deep and calm. "Because I believed you had to be ready to read it. And now, I think you are." The envelope shook between his fingers. For the first time in months, Ethan was afraid, not of loss, but of facing what his son had truly felt. Ethan didn't open the letter that night. He tucked it into his coat pocket, carrying it like something sacred. But his heart wasn't ready to read the words written by the boy who once called him Dad. Not yet. He needed to see for himself. He needed to stand where his son had truly smiled. The next afternoon, Ethan returned to Grove Park. It was drizzling, the air damp and cold, but not enough to keep the neighborhood kids from pouring onto the field. Laughter rang out. Tiny feet splashed through wet grass. No one noticed the man in the dark coat standing silently beneath the big maple tree. Jaden spotted him first. He kicked the ball aside and ran over. "I thought you weren't coming back." "I thought so too," Ethan said quietly. Jaden led Ethan to the weathered stone bench. The left side was cracked, just like he'd said. Ethan sat. It was cold, hard, and oddly familiar. "Liam always sat here," Jaden said, eyes on the field. He said from here he could imagine being a pro coach, but really, it was to rest. He got tired a lot. A group of kids ran past, shouting, kicking. A curly-haired girl screamed when someone blocked her shot, then burst out laughing. Ethan watched them and saw Liam among them. Faint but clear. The blue cap, the slow legs. But that glowing face. "Do you remember the last few times he came?" Ethan asked softly. Jaden nodded. He started coming less, sometimes just sat and watched, but he never gave up. When I scored a goal, Liam was the first to run up and hug me. Even tired, he always smiled. Another boy ran over, about 10. "Jaden, who's this?" Jaden turned, smiling. "This is Liam's dad, the boy I've been telling you about." The group gathered slowly, some shy, some curious. One said, "Liam taught me how to do a corner kick." Another added, "I miss his laugh." A quiet one murmured, "He told me if my dad never came to watch me play, he'd grow up and be a dad who came to every game." Ethan bowed his head. Tears hit his frozen hands. Things Liam never said to him, he'd said to these children. The drizzle turned to steady rain. Jaden took off his outer coat and gently draped it over Ethan's shoulders. He looked up, startled. "What are you doing?" "I think Liam would have done that if you were cold." The answer left Ethan speechless. When he left the park that day, soaked to the skin, his mind was a storm of emotions. But for the first time in months, he didn't feel empty. Liam had lived, truly lived, here on that muddy patch of field, in laughter, in friendship. And Ethan knew. Before he could read that letter, he had to learn to see his son through the eyes of those who truly saw him. Ethan didn't read the letter the night he got home. He left it on his nightstand, unopened, just there. 4 days passed. He went to work, sat through meetings, ate, slept. But he wasn't living. The envelope stayed where it was, a quiet burn pressed against his chest. On the 4th night, when everything inside him had gone still, Ethan finally picked it up. His hands trembled. He breathed in deeply and opened it. A single sheet of folded paper, the familiar crooked handwriting. The first lines made his heart break. "Dad, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Maybe Jaden found you. I told him if something happened, to find you and give you this letter." A soft sob escaped Ethan's throat. The next line sliced through him. "Don't be mad that I lied. I know you thought I was at physical therapy, but I was at the park. I needed it, Dad. At the hospital, people looked at me like I was already dead. At home, it was so quiet, I felt like I was in the way just by existing. But at the park, Jaden and the others didn't know I was sick. They just saw a kid who played soccer badly, ran slow, laughed a lot. I liked that." Ethan clutched the paper tighter, but didn't dare stop reading. "I'm not mad at you for working so much. I know you love me. Even if you didn't say it, I knew. Mom said you were like Grandpa. You show love by building things. I just wish you'd ever built something with me. Even a Lego tower would have been enough." A sharp cry broke from Ethan's chest. His throat closed with grief. Jaden doesn't have much money, but his mom always brushes his hair before the park. Little things like that. I think they matter. If you're reading this, I just want to ask one thing. Don't be sad too long. And if you can, take care of Jaden for me. He's my best friend. He plays way better than I do. Maybe you could go watch him play, like I once hoped you'd come watch me." Ethan lowered his head. Tears soaked the page. "I love you, even though you never asked how my day was. Even though you were always on important calls, I still love you. But I wish you'd loved yourself enough to stop and be with me. Liam." The letter slipped from Ethan's hand. He sat in the dark, trembling like a child. A few days later, Monica came to his office. She stood quietly in the doorway, holding a small notebook with frayed edges. "I found this," she said softly. "It's Liam's journal. He gave it to me during one of his breaks at the hospital and told me to keep it safe. Ethan opened it. Amid stick figure drawings were quiet entries. Day 127 of treatment. Dad came again after I was already asleep. He left a new iPad on the table. It has like 1,000 games, but I just wanted him to stay and tell me a boring work story. Day 139. Went to the park today. Jaden said I kicked like a chicken, but he laughed. No one pitied me. I felt normal. Ethan stopped at that line. I'm afraid you'll never know who I am. His vision blurred. The words on the page dissolved into Liam's voice in his mind, small, soft, aching. The voice of a boy who only wanted to be seen. He sank into the chair. The room was suffocatingly quiet, broken only by the dry tick of the clock, each second striking like an offbeat heartbeat. He saw it all again, the late nights under fluorescent light while Liam slept in his hospital bed, the times his son tried to share tiny victories, a goal in a game, a messy drawing, and Ethan, without looking up, muttered, "I'm busy." He had told himself he worked for Liam's future, but the truth hit him like a wave. He had never really known his son at all. He knew the patient, the prescriptions, the bills, but not the boy. Not the way Liam loved rain more than sun, or music more than TV, or how he still laughed even when pain made breathing hard. The letter blurred with tears. He wondered, how many buildings, how many contracts, how many years of success would it take to buy back just one afternoon beside his son? None. Nothing could. I'm afraid you'll never know who I am. The line echoed in his head, again and again, like a broken melody. Yet in that unbearable silence, something shifted. Small, fragile, real. For the first time in months, Ethan didn't see himself as a man robbed by loss. He saw himself as the one who had failed to truly be there for his son. Liam hadn't needed a hero. He had needed a father, present, listening, sitting beside him. Ethan reached out, fingertips trembling over the final line, whispering through tears. I know now, Liam. I know who you are, and I'll never forget again. Ethan folded the letter with trembling hands, soaked in tears. He couldn't rewrite the past, but he could face it, starting with the only people who had truly seen Liam, Monica and Jaden. After Monica left, Ethan sat alone in his office, the city lights flickering through the 30th floor window. The letter, the journal, and his son's eyes surrounded him. For the first time in his life, he didn't want to make it right. He just wanted to show up, like he should have long ago. 3 days later, Ethan returned to Grove Park. This time, there was no luxury car pulled up at the curb, no tailored suit, no expensive cologne. He wore an old gray t-shirt and jeans, his expression stripped of confidence, left only with awkwardness and something else, sincerity. His eyes were learning how to see again, not as an architect, not as a businessman, but as a father. Jaden spotted him first. He froze mid-dribble. Slowly, the other kids noticed. The game paused. No one spoke. I thought you weren't coming back, Jaden said. Ethan nodded, offering a faint, almost shy smile. So did I. Silence. Just the wind brushing through bare autumn trees. I was wondering if I could join you, Ethan said softly. Maybe you could teach me, like you taught Liam? Jaden looked at him for a long time. No nod, no frown. Then he turned to the others and whispered something. A few seconds later, several quiet nods gave their silent approval. Okay, Jaden said, but you have to be goalie. Liam was always the goalie. Ethan chuckled, walking toward the net. It was a perfect position for someone who had spent years dodging every shot life had taken. The game began, and as expected, Ethan was terrible. The first kick soared over his head, the second slipped between his legs. One bounced off his stomach and made him stagger, and the kids laughed, loudly, joyfully, but not with mockery, just the way they once laughed with Liam, fully and freely. "You've got to bend your knees," Jaden yelled. "You're stiffer than a lamppost." "My grandma jumps faster than that," a curly-haired girl giggled. And Ethan laughed. For the first time in months, he heard his own voice, rough, clumsy, unfamiliar, but real. And somewhere deep inside his chest, something cracked open. A door that had been locked too long. During a break, Ethan slumped onto the grass, shirt soaked through. Monica walked over with a plastic cup of orange juice, watching him with cautious eyes, still unsure if this man was truly changing. "Not quite your office espresso," she said quietly. "But tastes better than anything I've ever had," Ethan replied, finishing it in one gulp. They sat beneath the maple tree. Not much was said, but the silence between them felt knowing. "Jaden told me," Monica said after a pause, "about Liam. The letter? You?" Ethan nodded, his gaze drifting to the field where Jaden was helping another boy back on his feet. "He's teaching me forgiveness," Ethan said, "not through words, but by treating me like someone who matters." Monica watched the boy dust himself off and run back to play. "Maybe Liam's doing the same," she whispered. "Not in memory, but in everything you're becoming." That night, Ethan sat alone in the small apartment he now called home, far from the cold echo of his penthouse. He opened Liam's journal, turned to the last page, and wrote, "Today I played the worst soccer game of my life, but I played, and I laughed, and I heard your voice, in your friend's laughter. I'm learning how to live, Liam, and I won't stop now." As the sunset painted Grove Park in soft gold, Ethan sat beside Jaden under the old maple tree, resting after the game. The laughter had faded. Only the breeze and their steady breaths remained. One man learning how to father, one boy who never truly had one. "Liam told me about you," Jaden said softly, eyes fixed on the field where the other kids still played. "He said you build cities. You're really good at it, but—" Jaden hesitated. Ethan turned, saying nothing, simply waiting. "But you never came to see him play." Ethan's fingers curled slightly. His heart skipped a beat. "I know what that feels like," Jaden went on. "No one's ever come to watch me play either." Ethan remained silent. Jaden swallowed. Then the words poured out, quiet but honest. "My dad died when I was 4. Car crash. I don't remember his face, but I always thought, if I had a dad, he'd be there, sitting under a tree, yelling my name, even if I sucked at soccer." Ethan's throat tightened. This boy was saying the things Liam never got to say. "Liam said I was the only one who didn't treat him like he was sick." Jaden gave a crooked smile. "I just saw him as a funny, slow, loud kid who sucked at goalie, like me." Ethan chuckled lightly, but something inside him stirred, deep and raw. "You know," he said, eyes on the field, "your dad would be proud. You're the kind of kid who knows how to be a real friend, and that's rare." Jaden turned to him. For the first time, his eyes softened. It wasn't the compliment, it was the presence. "So, will you come Friday?" Jaden asked, like he wasn't quite sure. "What's happening Friday?" "My match, a small tournament. Mom always works the night shift, so she's never been." Ethan nodded, no hesitation. "I'll be there, early, and yelling the loudest." Jaden smiled, shy, small, but warm. Across the park, Monica watched. She didn't call him over, didn't interrupt. She simply stood there with Jaden's jacket in hand, eyes lingering on the man sitting cross-legged on the grass, talking quietly with her son. She had once thought Ethan was like every other man, polished, powerful, untouchable behind the glass towers he built. But here he was, sitting in the dirt, listening to a child, not rushing, not filling silence with platitudes. Just being there. And that, more than anything, made her pause. It wasn't love, not yet. But something in her heart loosened. Not attraction, not pity, just permission to hope. That afternoon, Ethan arrived at Jaden's match earlier than the event staff. He sat in the front row, sleeves rolled up, cheering until his voice turned hoarse. From a distance, Monica stood with a coffee in hand, unsure if the feeling in her chest was surprise or something softer. Jaden wasn't great on the field, but every time he missed a shot, Ethan clapped. Every time he stood his ground, Ethan shouted louder than anyone. Not because Jaden needed coaching, but because he deserved someone who simply showed up. After the game, Jaden ran to Ethan and hugged him. Right there, in the middle of the noise, the laughter, and the sweaty chaos. It wasn't a father-son hug by blood, but it was full of something deeper, recognition. That night, Ethan sat alone in his office, the lights off, a pen in his hand, facing not the world, but himself. And he began to rewrite everything. The next day, he announced the biggest shift in his company's history. No more meetings after 6 p.m., paid leave for parents with seriously ill children, mental health support for employees grieving loved ones. His colleagues were stunned. The press called him the CEO who went soft. Ethan didn't care. This wasn't charity. It was redemption, not with money, but with change. One Friday evening, Monica met him at Jaden's school gate. No grand gestures, no dramatic invitations. Just dinner, overcooked spaghetti, a cramped apartment, and Jaden's laughter echoing from the living room. Ethan felt warm, not the artificial warmth of corporate heating, but the kind that lived inside walls where people loved. One dinner became two, then weekly. They never called it dating, just dinner. But Ethan started buying vegetables, peeling carrots, folding Jaden's shirts. Monica didn't let her guard down easily. She'd lost too much to hand over her heart quickly. But she saw Ethan wasn't trying to take over. He just wanted to be there and stay. A few months later, Ethan launched a nonprofit, Play for Tomorrow, a program bringing sports, arts, and joyful activities to kids in medical care. He didn't just fund it. He showed up. Jaden was always beside him, becoming the big brother to others, just as Liam had once been to him. As for Monica, she no longer called him project director. She called him Ethan. And some nights, after Jaden was asleep, they sat on the small sofa, sharing a cup of ginger tea. No words needed, just being together. To Ethan, that became his new definition of family. Not perfect, not loud, but a place where people chose to stay, day after day. 3 years had passed since the day Jaden played soccer in torn shoes and Ethan cheered hoarsely from the front row. Much had changed, but something beautiful had begun that day, and never stopped growing. One autumn morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window. Monica set down a plate of slightly burnt pancakes. Ethan poured milk into a glass, and Jaden, now nearly as tall as Ethan, raised an eyebrow and blurted out, "Dad, Mom, I'm going to be late for school." Ethan froze. It was the first time Jaden called him Dad, without hesitation, without a second thought. No one said anything. Monica placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, squeezing gently. Ethan looked at Jaden and gave him a small nod that meant, "Thank you, son. I'm proud of you." They had become a family, not by blood, but by choice. The choice to stay, to forgive, to love, every single day. After a small wedding in the park, the one where Liam once played, Ethan and Monica built a life together in a cozy, modest apartment. Jaden had his own room, a space for his cleats and soccer trophies. And Ethan had something he never truly understood until now. A real home. One Saturday afternoon, during a Play for Tomorrow charity event, Ethan noticed a new boy sitting quietly by the edge of the field. Thin, wrapped in a wool hat that hid a bald head, clutching an old soccer ball. His name was Aiden, 9 years old, undergoing leukemia treatment. He didn't play, just watched. Ethan walked over and sat on the grass beside him. "Do you know how to play?" Aiden shook his head. "I get tired fast." "So did Liam," Ethan said softly. "But you know what? Not every goal is meant to be scored. Some are just meant to be shared." Aiden let out a shy giggle. Ethan smiled and stood, holding out his hand. "Want to join?" Aiden hesitated, then reached up and placed his hand in Ethan's. Jaden saw from across the field. He took off his jacket, jogged over, and handed Aiden his old soccer cleats. "Liam gave me a chance," he said. "Now it's your turn." The game began. Aiden ran for just a few minutes before needing a break, but his eyes sparkled. Ethan sat beside him, handing him water, watching the sky. Somewhere up there, Liam was smiling. The boy who once only wanted his dad to hear him had now become a guiding light for others to find their place. Ethan held Aiden's small hand. 3 years ago, he lost his son. Today, he found pieces of Liam in every laugh, every sprint, every soccer ball kicked across the field. Not as a replacement, but as a continuation. Because real love never dies. It just lives on. In the hearts it touches next. And in learning to love again, Ethan realized that Liam hadn't just left him. He had led him home. That afternoon, after a game full of laughter with Jaden and Aiden, Ethan sat alone in the small office, tucked into the corner of their home. Golden light poured through the window. The old pocket watch on the desk chimed gently with the hour. No longer a sound of loss, but of presence. Ethan opened the journal he had been writing for Liam. 3 years had passed since the first page. Each entry was a step in learning how to be a father, not by perfection, but by showing up. He wrote the final line. "My son, today, your brothers and I played soccer under the setting sun. I heard your laughter in every kick, every shout across the field. You never really left. You just became the best part of who we are. I no longer write to say sorry, Liam. I write to say thank you. Thank you for saving me. With love, Dad." Ethan closed the journal, brushing a hand over the worn cover. Beside it sat the only photo Monica had managed to capture. Ethan, Jaden, and Aiden playing together, grinning wide. A slightly blurry shot, imperfect in frame, but perfect in feeling. The past, the present, and hope. The pocket watch chimed again. Ethan smiled. Not because he had forgotten, but because now he remembered the right way. Sometimes what a child needs most isn't a perfect father, but one willing to learn how to love, to begin again, and to simply be there, fully, every single day.